in Robbins, Illinois, Bruce Rauner won as the governor. You used to live there, but you're still there. Bruce Rauner won the gubernatorial campaign against incumbent Pat Quinn. A huge development, though. You had a group of black pastors in Chicago who were ticked off that Democrats in the state had not done what they were supposed to do when it came to education over at least a decade. So Reverend James Meeks, former state senator, he led them in terms of endorsing Bruce Rauner. Rauner wins. Earlier today, we talked with Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., and we asked him about that. You will be shocked with how he responded. Play.
I think it's a long-term strategy. Meeks will probably be right, because now if the Republicans got 25% of the black vote, that means they'll have to fight to keep it. Democrats have to fight to get it back, and that puts us in a position of being stronger. Having a little more leverage. The Democrats, would you say, have taken black voters for granted, as they certainly could? We voted for them monolithically. Because no matter how we're treated, then we come rather blindly back into the fold on the book of being taken for granted. That is true.
Let's go national. Let's go national in terms of where we stand. Well, Reverend says,
and the Reverend, when these other pastors came out and supported Bruce Rauner, you can believe that Reverend Jackson and those who were supporting Pat Quinn weren't saying, "Oh, they're right." They were saying, "Oh, this is a travesty." Some were even suggesting that it was a sellout. So to come back after the fact and say, you know what? Yes, the Democrats were taking us for granted.
I think it's also that strategy. But again, to our panel, I mean, to this point, Reverend Jackson says, as a result of this, Democrats in Illinois were just taught a lesson. And the issue goes to education. When they increased the state income tax in Illinois from 3 to 5%, it was Reverend James Meeks' bill when he was in the state Senate that the $2 billion would go to education. Democrats stripped it out later, kept the $2 billion, but didn't go to education. Every time they tried to get the money to go to education, they said no. So Democrats control Chicago. They control Speaker of the House Mike Madigan is head of the state Democratic Party. You have the governor. So they got taught a lesson. Should this cause some concern, and should black folks be playing this type of political game in the future?
Well, it's kind of like what Martin Luther King III said. Black voters need to play active roles in both political parties, Democrats and Republicans. I would agree. And I think it's good when we have both parties competing for our vote, because we, as black Americans, stand to gain and benefit from it.
Now that you've gotten 25% in Illinois and obviously made some inroads elsewhere, because black people have been recently afraid of the Republican Party. You stand for many things which African Americans think is not in our interest.
And voter suppression is still a major issue.
Voter suppression, et cetera. But what are you going to do now to keep them?
Well, we're going to compete. We're going to close the economic and educational disparities that exist. Talking about creating real jobs now. We can start with the Keystone Pipeline. There's thousands of jobs that could get created tomorrow. We're going to talk about school choice and all of the above school choice agenda.
How about educational? How about equitable funding? How about equitable funding for education? Because as we know, you got students in Illinois who get $19,000 per student per year. Then you got those who get $11,000 per student.
Tax cuts for who? But Jason, I do want you to address this issue again. These black preachers going to their congregations and being very strategic, and they didn't say, "Oh, Bruce Rauner, we agree with him on everything." Right. What they said is, on the issue of education, Democrats promised this, and they failed us on every single one of those. And then they said, "You won't do it, you will." They were strategic in doing so.
And it makes a lot of sense. Look, you saw the same thing in Mississippi, okay, where black folk went and voted for the other senatorial candidate during the primary because they're like, hey, this guy is less of a problem.
Supported incumbent Senator Thad Cochran over the deranged
crazy challenger who hated black folk and everything. So it's common sense politics. And we actually see this on the state level all the time. Remember, George Bush got 25% of the black vote when he ran for governor. So it's not
No, George Bush got 25% when he ran in the second term because Gary Morrow was a horrible candidate. But he didn't get it. He didn't get it in the first time we ran against Ann Richards.
Right.
But as a native Texan, I just want to.
Go
right ahead.
He's got Texas. I got it.
Just go right ahead.
I got to pull out my
facts are facts. Go right ahead.
But the point is, there is a precedent. There is a precedent for Republican governors being able to get African American voters at the state level. That's actually never been a problem. It is the national Republican Party that has trouble getting black folks to turn out. If that can be fixed, then yes, things can change.
But Judith, the problem though is when black folks start attacking those African Americans, as sellouts. You got paid off and all those things. In fact, Reverend Meeks was interesting. He made it clear to his congregation. He said, I've been living for 30 years off the love offerings for y'all. He said, I don't need somebody else's money. But again, for African Americans, folks are saying you're a sellout, but the preachers are saying they didn't do jack on education.
So, yeah,
what do you think?
bought you for nothing.
What do you think I'm supposed to do?
The question is, who is the sellout, right? Are the people, are those elected officials are they the people that sold us out because they didn't do what they said they were going to do? At the end of the day, we have to vote our interests.
But how do you make sure they do what they promised now during the election?
But this is the thing is you vote them out, but you can also get new candidates, because the problem is that Republican Party may not line up with everything else that you agree with, including voter suppression, right? Voter ID issues, all carried out by the Republican Party across cutbacks to early voting, et cetera. So they're really not the party for the Lincoln Party any longer, right? And so at the end of the day, we have to have candidates that actually do reflect our interests. And that means starting at the primaries. We need to be running people who agree with our agenda from A to Z.
And it's about an agenda, and I think the question is, well, what is it that we want? What is it that we want and demand from our elected officials? Is it jobs now? Is it some sort of voting rights reform? Is it closing the gap in education? And I think when you look at jobs, when you look at education, Republicans lead on those things. So this is our bread and butter.
So Orlando got to ask. One second. Orlando got to ask you. Not a single Republican senator, now that they're going to control the Senate, not a single Republican senator has signed on to support the bill to reinstate the provisions that were struck down by the Supreme Court. Are Republicans, now that they have control of the House and the Senate, are they going to support that particular bill in order to strengthen the Voting Rights Act?
Well, we're going to have to wait and see, and we have to remember that...
Harry Reid is still the majority leader. The bill was there, and you all passed on it. You all passed on it.
Hold up. But for our audience, there's not a single Republican who has signed on as a co-sponsor to the bill. You have Sensenbrenner in the House who is pushing it.
Exactly.
A Republican.
Right. But the point is, that's the House. Will a Republican senator step up and say, you know what, I'm with Sensenbrenner, I'm with others who say we need to strengthen the Voting Rights Act. Will they do it?
Well, we'll have to see. Again, we'll have to see. But I will tell you, first and foremost, that our number one priority is jobs now. And I don't think black voters are a one-issue voting population.
But I'm actually asking about this one.
But this one issue actually kind of matters.
We'll wait and see. We're going to take a break, let you make a phone call. Okay, we'll come back and we'll see what they're going to do.
All right. When we come back, we're going to, and we'll talk about, again, a number of black Republicans who were elected. Is this a sign of the future and not just simply insignificant races? We'll break it down as well.
We're also going to talk to the cast of a new black horror movie. No, not horror comedy movie, a horror movie. Matthew 18 had me checking the Bible last night. Will you tell you why you need to check out this movie if you dare?
All right, folks, hit us up on Twitter at NewsOne or at Roland S. Martin, and go to our NewsOne Facebook page. 28 before the top of the hour. You can also go hit Robin at Twitter, Robin Robinson, and she does tweet crazy stuff. All right, then, folks, back on TV One in a moment.
About me.
All right, folks, welcome back to News One Now. Republicans, guess what? You're going to have a sister, Mia Love, out of Utah in the U.S. House of Representatives, the first black woman ever elected to Congress. Come January, you also, of course, are going to have Tim Scott. He will finish out the final 2 terms of Jim DeMint's term in the United States Senate. And we talked about, of course, the individual Larry Hogan, who won as governor in Maryland. Well, he has a black lieutenant governor in Maryland. You mentioned him, Bob Rutherford, who won as well. And then, of course, Will Hurd. He won a congressional seat in Texas. He becomes the first African-American Republican sent to Congress from Texas since Reconstruction.
Back to the first. Mia Love, the first Republican member of Congress from ever, not just from Utah, but from ever.
Yeah.
A big right to life platform. And she thinks she's going to make a huge difference. Here's what she has to say.
Many of the naysayers out there said that Utah would never elect a black Republican LDS woman to Congress. And guess what? Not only did we do it, we were the first to do it. So let this be a lesson to the nation that we're not interested in dividing Americans based on gender, race, social status. We are more interested in the integrity and the honesty of a candidate, someone who is going to return power back to the people and away from Washington.
LDS is Latter-day
Saints.
I thought it was some sort of
Latter-day
sexual orientation.
Saints.
What's LDS? Some new letters I don't know about.
The other piece is also she is the child of Haitian immigrants.
Right. And now a Mormon, Republican from Utah.
From Haiti.
Okay.
That's a whole lot of
immigrants.
Because here's the deal. Will Hurd beat a Latino incumbent in Texas. He's an African-American, former CIA officer?
Operative, right.
CIA operative. Then, of course, you have Senator Tim Scott. And so you have folks in leadership positions.
Yeah. Look, I got to say this. I interviewed Orlando. We talked about Mia Love before. I think she's sort of a separate case. I think she'll be a great representative for the state of Utah.
But she is black.
Yeah, she is black, but I don't think she's... the significance of some of these positions is whether or not the Republican Party strategically can use them to sort of appeal to other black voters.
I don't think... I'm sorry to cut you off, but the significance of Senator Tim Scott getting elected, this is the first African-American elected to both the House and the Senate.
Yes, that's why they're different.
But is that a good thing for African-Americans?
Tim Scott is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Tim Scott is fantastic.
But here's the deal, though. But here's the deal, though. You have Congressman Jim Clyburn from South Carolina, who has been highly critical of Tim Scott, who said, well, you want to call it progress, somebody who votes against the Affordable Care Act, somebody who's, and he said when it came to also issues of voter suppression, he said, I don't call that progress.
He said he votes
This gets back to 1992 when, Clarence Thomas was, was nominated to the Supreme Court. You can't look at all black people the same way. Thurgood Marshall said it, and you cannot say...
And a lot of them as individuals, you're right.
For what a lot of us stand for. And clearly, we are not monolithic. We are not. We all have different views on political issues. But at the end of the day, we definitely cannot go just by the skin color of somebody and say they stand for what I stand for.
Well, we never should. We should judge them on their character, on what they have to offer.
And Tim Scott is probably the one that I would look at his politics.
He has an opportunity agenda that I hope everyone takes a look at that would expand scholarship programs for those who can't afford to go to quality schools.
Get rid of public schools altogether.
That would increase apprenticeship programs for people who have a gap in employment. Here's
the value of Tim Scott in a common sense legislative way. Tim Scott is about his job. Tim Scott is about representing his district. Tim Scott does that undercover, his state. He does that undercover boss thing where he goes undercover and works in different jobs and learns about his community. That's what you're supposed to do as a senator. That's different from somebody like Mia Love, who sort of toned down her rhetoric, who ran initially saying, I'm going to tear apart the Congressional Black Caucus from the inside. So that's what we're talking about. If you want African-American candidates to not only represent the Republican Party, but reach out to other black voters, they have to be people who are doing their job first, not just attacking black folk in general.
Well, she hasn't even gotten there. I mean, she'll be there in January.
But that's what she said. That's what she said.
But the bottom line, black Republicans made history on Tuesday night.
But now you got the Congressional Black Caucus is going to have some Republican members.
Well, that's if they choose to join.
Yeah, she's not going to join.
She's not going to join. How are you going to tear apart from the inside?
Right, because Senator Tim Scott chose not to join. Right. And now when Congressman Gary Frank was there from Connecticut, he did join the CBC when he was there.
J.C. Watts did not.
Right.
It's not called the Black Democratic Black Caucus. It is just the Black Caucus. But what I'm trying to get at is the agenda of black people, if that's what we're interested in talking about here. Does anybody know what it is? So we can say that he votes against the interests of African Americans 95% of the time, as James Clyburn said about Tim Scott. Well, the African American interests are not, everybody's not the same. So is there an agenda that we can hold people accountable to?
Well, you've got to look at some of the institutions in our communities. That starts with the churches, that starts with our historically black colleges and universities, that starts with our business and civic organizations, and ask what is it that they're trying to advance, what is it that they're pushing.
Well, they may
the
not
churches'
agree.
Education's a big issue for them. The Urban League, it's about jobs and one nation underemployed. We're trying to...
So let me state the fact. So this is what the Washington Post reported. When it came to the NAACP's annual scorecard, Senator Tim Scott got an F. He voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. He voted to hold Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. He opposed the Congressional Black Caucus's budget proposal and also voted to delay funding to a settlement between the United States and black farmers who alleged that the federal government refused them loans because of their race. Now, that's what the Washington Post reported about Senator Tim Scott. You talked about his opportunity agenda and some other issues as well.
Right, and I would say when it comes to the Affordable Care Act, it's debatable as to whether or not it's actually done what they promised it would do, which is decrease the number of uninsured black Americans. It's only gone from 21 to 20% in 1 year's time.
Voting with the party.
Actually, it has, though. I mean, so the bottom line is, if you look at the percentage of African Americans who now have health care, they have lowered that. And here's the other piece. A lot of Republicans they were not running against the Affordable Care Act because it actually has been going well.
Yeah. He has a record. They elected him anyway. We have some new members coming in. We'll have to see what they do, but it has to be somebody at the ground, voters, voter groups, holding elected officials accountable, Democrat or Republican. Otherwise, doesn't matter who you elect. They're going to talk to you during election time and ignore you as soon as the polls close. Otherwise, I mean, that's where we seem to be. That's the cycle we're in.
Right, and that's why we have to keep engaged all the time. People cannot walk away and say, oh, I voted, and that's it. Every day we got to be holding folks accountable.
But I think we need to hold on to this moment where black Republicans made history on Tuesday night.
I know the GOP is holding on.
And if they represent their districts, if they represent their districts, it's fine. But if you want to actually expand who the Republican Party can talk to, they have to be able to talk to people outside of their districts. That's where my question comes into play. I think Tim Scott is great for South Carolina. I don't know if he's great if you were trying to send him to Maryland, Illinois, or other places in a 2016 campaign.
Jason, Judith, Orlando, y'all can continue the conversation. Out of here. I got to go. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Time's up already.
All right, yes, it is. Folks, coming up, looking for frights even after Halloween. The cast of Matthew 18 has a scary scoop on the new film hitting theaters next weekend.
And hit Rolling Up with your thoughts on Twitter. Talk about him bad at NewsOne or at Roland Martin. Oh, don't do that because he talks back. Go on our NewsOne Facebook page. And you can find me. I'm really nice on Twitter. At Robin Robinson. Or check out our NewsOne Facebook page. It is right now 45 minutes after the hour. You got 16 minutes in front of the hour because the glass is half full to you, half empty to me.